Naughty Nissan is the theme of this TYT politics, always trying to give you the real topics and not BS Conflicts news report as we recap what took place last Friday, which saw Nissan workers unfortunately vote against their own interests. Of course, it's to look back on how Nissan workers did not vote to unionize or to seek unionization from their bosses at Nissan in the Canton, Mississippi plant. And what's unfortunate about this is that it is another blow to union rights and the union fight in this country, as well as the overall middle class struggle. With this plant, this Canton, Mississippi plant being predominantly 80% black, it was something where this represented a full scope of why everyone in the Democratic base should have been behind this and been behind this to the point where their energy should have matched what Bernie Sanders and Danny Glover's attention span was back in March, as they were the only prominent national figures, along with Our Revolution's Nina Turner, at that march for these workers through UAW to seek unionization. Unfortunately, the final vote total was a clear victory for not to unionize, with the total 2,244 no's to 1,307 yeses. And the whole campaign represented a successful attempt by Nissan at smearing unionization and, more creepily, threatening their workers regularly throughout the process, where if these workers voted on unionization, they would suffer the consequences. And those consequences would far beyond even just threatening to take away some workers' jobs or to reduce their hours being reduced from the poor working conditions that they are already in, thanks to Nissan being in the South and being a right-to-work state. But the threat from Nissan itself that they possibly would close the plant in Canton, Mississippi, if unionization was supported by a majority of the workers in the plant. And of course, it doesn't help matters when you have Republican nutcases continuing their battle of trying to eradicate unions forever, since all the Republicans down there, especially the governor of the state, Phil Bryant, was fully behind the latest anti-union rhetoric and actions taking place by Nissan, and was fully behind their workers not unionizing. The scare tactics that Nissan placed, along with anti-union sources, wasn't surprising, but it was still chilling to witness, with anti-union ads all over cable TV or on local TV, as well as on the radio, with a lot of really chilling, creepy messages on the radio felt by people throughout Canton, Mississippi, and throughout Mississippi, threatening or chastising workers if they supported unionization in this Canton, Mississippi plant. And with this plant, again, being 80% black as well, this had all the elements there of how it represented the fight for the middle to lower class in this country, and how it was a real battle that should have been supported fervorously and not last minute by certain Democrats tweeting on their accounts in their support of it. That includes one, say, Kamala Harris, and other Democrats who came out of nowhere to voice their support when they didn't even bother making a trip down there like Senator Bernie Sanders did, along with actor Danny Glover, who continues to show how he is well in tune on the issues by being on the front lines with the battle here for that back in March. So we had a statement, of course, by the UAW president, Dennis Williams, who addressed the heinous practices that Nissan had committed on their workers, as well as the courage of those workers who sought unionization from the UAW. Quote, he said after the vote and what took place, the courageous workers of Nissan who fought tirelessly for union representation alongside community and civil rights leaders should be proud of their efforts to be represented by the UAW. Perhaps recognizing they couldn't keep their workers from joining our union based on the facts, Nissan and its anti-worker allies ran a vicious campaign against its own workers that was compromised of intense scare tactics, misinformation, and intimidation. American workers need champions more than ever. The workers of Nissan deserve to have the job security, safe working conditions, and collective bargaining power that comes only from belonging to a union. The UAW will continue to be on the front lines of that fight for all workers. And you also had the UAW before those final votes were revealed. The final vote tally was revealed to everyone from Kansas, Mississippi to the rest of the nation and certain parts of the world. UAW have gone to the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, to file a lawsuit against the shady practices that Nissan undertook in intimidating their workers to not support union rights. Now, fortunately, with the NLRB likely to put on two President Trump elected people, that lawsuit and maybe a challenge for a revote may not take place. And even if a revote occurs, even if a revote is granted, a revote election for unionization, it is a strong likelihood that the vote total may be even more for non-unionization, as it has proven in historical terms unsuccessful for unionization re-elections. And added towards that, there is a possibility that in a sane world, the NLRB, they could actually rule that the practices from Nissan were so heinous on their workers that they could automatically rule unionization for all their workers point blank. But unfortunately, that will lead to Nissan then counter suing or trying to go against that rule set in place by the NLRB if they sought fit in a perfect world to do so. And the process of whether those workers would be unionized would take maybe years to get settled. And that isn't going to be happening even if there was a rational NLRB and not future dump candidates being on the verge of becoming part of the NLRB. So once again, to just put a cap on this unfortunate news that has been having its analysis and ripple effects this Friday, you have the UAW trying to stay strong and fully going on the full press to show that they are all over the South and that their presence will remain and that they will continue to fight for workers around plants down in the southern region of our nation, especially those right-to-work states throughout, with that full Republican control throughout the political chambers. But still, though, this is a concern where, again, with so much attention being brought on conservative things and the nuttiness that we see from our disaster in chief, that the whole core fight for union rights is being forgotten about from a broad sector of the public, and how this was a devastating blow indeed to the fight for union rights and the perspective of whether we can go into the South and turn around the toxic environment that conservatives and Republicans have fully implemented, and how some Democrats as well had led to the loss of unionization throughout that region, and how there's so many disadvantaged workers, particularly workers of color, suffering from unionization being so heavily attacked throughout this nation and not fiercely defended like it needed to, like you see from Senator Bernie Sanders and those who were a part of that march in the month of March, like Nina Turner and Danny Glover. So we'll see what happens, but know well that the UAW is not deterred in their fight, and how we covering these issues from the progressive angle of news, which is the rational angle of news in the end of the day for the broad betterment of society. We will continue to cover this and continue to try to expose or fully bring to light how the powerful want to keep workers and their families down. So for TYT Politics, I'm Andrew Jones, and I won't be driving a Nissan anytime soon. Take care and have a good rest of your day.